Hello, students. I'm going to take you on a quick tour of the Great Plains. Think about tumbling weeds and boneheads in the desert and wagons and mountain men and Little House on the Prairie and tornadoes, all that stuff that happens out on the Great Plains. Now, the Great Plains is another part of our geography study, and I'm going to give you an audio discussion and overview of why this region was important in regards to its physical features, its climate, and the adaptations and the technological adaptations that were needed to help the settlers live in this area and expand westward. So, all aboard. The Great Plains are located just east of the Rocky Mountains. This blue area right here, that's where the Great Plains are. And plains are basically flat, very grassy, and I'll talk more about that later on. Here are the Great Plains, which is in the heartland of the United States. And you have two questions at the bottom. It says, can you list the states that are in the Great Plains? And the second question is, what political regions are part of the Great Plains? So I'm going to go ahead and fill out this map. So the first question we're going to answer, can you list the states in the Great Plains? So this brown area, this light brown area, looks like vanilla ice cream a little bit. Anyway, yellowish vanilla ice cream. So we're going to list the states that are in the Great Plains. We have Montana. We have North Dakota. I'm glad that this map is bigger so you can write in the names of the states so you don't have to abbreviate. Then we have part of Wyoming is in the Great Plains. Wyoming means peace in the valley. Peace in the valley, I think in a Cheyenne language, Cheyenne Native American language. Then we have South Dakota. And then underneath there we have Nebraska, which is also called the Cornhusker State. A lot of corn is grown out there, a lot of wheat. And then you have Kansas, the Jayhawk State. And to the west of Kansas, you have Colorado. And then you have below Kansas, you have Oklahoma. And then you have Texas, the great state of Texas, which the Great Plains goes through. And then you have New Mexico. So we have Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. Those are states that have the Great Plains in it, that go through it, that have consist of the Great Plains. What political regions are part of the Great Plains? This is a good review. So if you look at it carefully, I'm going to outline it in red. As we learned, Montana and Wyoming and Colorado on this side is the Rocky Mountain region. So some of the Rocky Mountain region has the Great Plains in it. It's not all rocky, it's not all mountains. And people get confused with that. Another region that has the Great Plains, I'm going to outline that in black, which this is the region that has most of the Great Plains in it. And that's right here that I'm outlining in black. This is the Midwest region. And then the last, actually we have one more region left. And I'm going to outline it in blue that has the Great Plains in it. And that consists of this right here that I'm outlining in blue, part of it. And this is the Southwest. So we've answered our two questions. So we have what political regions are part of the Great Plains? The Southwest, Midwest, and Rocky Mountains. And of course, I've already told you the first question in this answer. Can you list the states of the Great Plains? And they're right here. Okay. So make sure you have this on your map. Feel free to rewind it and listen to me talk again. All right. Let's finish our tour or keep going. All right, physical features. One thing I want you to know about physical features, and I want you to write this down in your packet or put it in your notes. Physical features are places or things that you can see and touch. That you can see and touch. Like you can see a mountain. You can see and touch a mountain, a river, a lake, a hill, a desert. You can feel that with your body. Anything that's physical, with your eyes and your hands or your feet. So physical features are things on a map or a landform or body of water that you can see and you can touch. So the physical features of the Great Plains consists of flatlands that rise gradually from east to west. So it's a gradual flatland. A vast expanse, very beautiful. Prairies, grasslands, you name it. Also about the physical features is it has a land that's eroded by wind and water. There are a lot of floods, there are a lot of tornadoes, a lot of windstorms, a lot of dust storms that happen out on the Great Plains. And that can be very difficult for the settlers and people who currently live there. So erosion basically means the wearing away of soil. Wearing away of soil. And another physical feature of the Great Plains, as I said earlier, grasslands with few trees. So you can drive for miles and miles out on the Great Plains and not see any trees. A lot of the roads out there don't have turns and curves like we do because we have mountains and they don't have mountains out there in the Great Plains. So those are the physical features of the Great Plains. Next is the climate. And the climate is basically the temperature and precipitation. I'm just going to abbreviate some words. Let me change that here. So I'm just going to put temp and I'm just going to abbreviate those words. Temperature and precipitation. How hot it is, how cold it is. Does it snow? Does it rain? Is it cloudy? You name it. So the climate of the Great Plains is very harsh, very rough. You have low rainfall, which can cause droughts. I think they get like 2 to 4 inches, maybe 2 to 10 inches of rainfall a year. Gosh, that's like 12 months. And you have many dust storms out on the Great Plains. And what the settlers had to do was, because of the many dust storms, is put handkerchiefs and cloths in the crevices of their windows and doors to keep the dust from coming in. Because dust can be very harmful and cause a lot of health problems and smother animals and smother small children. And dust is not pretty. It's not something you want to get into your home. So frequent dust storms was part of the climate, or is part of the climate of the Great Plains. And there's harsh winters. You'll have blizzards and temperatures below zero, 10, 15 degrees below zero. The wind chill factor is horrible out there, very horrible. So that's the climate of the Great Plains. Now we're going to talk about how people perceived the Great Plains region before the Civil War. Now you learned about the Civil War in the 5th grade. It's a war between the northern states and the southern states, the Confederacy. But before the Civil War, people would refer to the Great Plains as a treeless wasteland. They thought that it couldn't be settled, you couldn't farm there, you couldn't put a house there, you couldn't do anything with it. They thought it was like a trash dump. But that perception changed, and I'm going to tell you what made that perception change and the things that came about to change people's minds. Few people settled on the plains. Instead, they passed through on the way west. Not a lot of people stayed there in the Great Plains, but it was a passageway. It was a gateway to the west. Here are some pictures or scenes from the Great Plains. You have the buffalo, which was very important to the Native American diet, particularly the Plain Indians. Then you have grasslands. Then you got some flatlands right here. You got some small adobes or hills. So here's some scenes from the Great Plains. So, what changed people's minds? You had ownership for land ownership. Opportunities for land ownership. That means you can own land. You can buy acres of land. The Homestead Act of 1862 was a law passed by Congress and signed into law by President Lincoln at the time. And they provided some incentives for people to settle the land out there. For a $10 fee, homesteaders got 160 acres of land. That's a lot of space. They had to live on it and farm it for 5 years so they could own it. So that is what encouraged people to settle the West and think of it as a place that could be settled. Then you have technological advances. Technology is any type of tool or method that's used to make your life better. For instance, a car replaced a horse. An iPhone replaced a regular cell phone. An air conditioner replaced a fan. Anything that's an item or some type of action that's created or used to make your life better is considered technology or make your life easier. The possibility of wealth. Wealth means you earn income, you earn greater income. And I'm going to tell you some aspects about how people gained wealth, and that's because of the gold rush and the silver rush out west. The 49ers left in 1849 to go to California and Alaska and the western states to find gold and silver, strike it rich, bling bling, all that good stuff. Also, it was a new beginning for former slaves, and these former slaves were called exodusters. African Americans after the Civil War wanted a new beginning because they were freed and they wanted to go out to Kansas and Nebraska and make a name for themselves and make a life for themselves as a free man, a free woman. So those are some aspects that change people's minds. And adventure, having fun, venturing out. And these also tie in to westward expansion, the reasons for westward expansion. So I'm going to stop it there, and that's part one, and go back and listen to that and do any assignments that you're asked to do. Thanks for listening. Part two is coming up next, which is an expansion on the things that came about that changed people's minds in regards to technology and inventions and adapting. Thanks for listening.